Perspective makes all the difference. Yo, we're back out here once again, studying in the book of Lamentations. We're in chapter 3. We did the first few verses of chapter 3 in the last video. Go ahead and check that out. And today, I kind of want to speed run through the next, 14, 15 verses that we have. Big part of the reason for this is because it's a lot of the same thing. The language is very similar. And if you haven't gotten the point of how depressing it is and how the situation is for Israel and Jerusalem and the personification for Israel, for Jerusalem, and for the personification of the city through the lives of its people expressed here, you might have just missed the point altogether. But here again, chapter 3 is a little bit different because the prophet Jeremiah is going into more of perhaps his own perspective in the midst of this, which is still very similar. But all the same, we'll go through these verses here. You'll hear a lot of the same kind of things that go through. And I do have maybe a couple things that I would like to say about it. As always, check down below in the description. You'll find a few questions that I like to use when I'm going through the Bible. Things to help make the study a little bit more practical for me. Because once again, if the study of the Bible is not practical, then it is useless. All right, let's get into it. Almost jumped into this without saying a word of prayer and asking for the Holy Spirit real quick. So I just had to take care of that. Now, let's get into it. Verse 4, He has aged my flesh and my skin and broken my bones. He has besieged me and surrounded me with bitterness and woe. He has set me in dark places. The prophet is talking about God here. He has set me in dark places like the dead of long ago. You know, there's so many movies out there about this accelerated aging. You have Benjamin Button, who kind of ages in reverse kind of a thing. You have Old, I think M. Night Shyamalan did a movie. I didn't watch it, but I didn't really hear great things about it either. But the premise is there. That was a horror movie. That tells you what people think about getting old. Especially if it's happening at an accelerated rate. And when you have someone else who's aging it for you, and that's how you feel about life, imagine for those of you who may be a little bit older, or I guess for anyone, wherever you are right now, and to think, man, what would it be like if I were 40, 50, 60 years older than I am right now? Just like that. It'd be interesting, for one thing. I don't know how you'd respond to that, but I don't know if anyone would enjoy being where you are right now and all of a sudden being accelerated 50 years in terms of wear and tear, age on your body. Wouldn't be pleasant. And you know it's not, because the very next thing that he says is, I'm basically like the dead people from long ago. Think of these pictures that are being painted by the prophet here, not only when he's talking about it from the perspective of Israel and her people in terms of what's going on here, but for him, this is what he's feeling like. And I imagine there's even an added component here, because as the prophet of God, undoubtedly he would have been telling the people the things that they could do and should do to avoid this very thing that's happening. And in fact, if you look through the books of the Bible, just in terms of the order of them, you have Isaiah, Lamentations, you have Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations. So the order of the books in the Bible doesn't always reflect chronological order. But Jeremiah here definitely had a message for the people, followed another prophet, a major prophet in Isaiah. And then you kind of look at, well, here's the result of all of this stuff in the book of Lamentations. So he's feeling dead because nobody would listen to him when they had the opportunity. And he's feeling dead now because of what he's feeling in the anguish and the grief because of what's happened because no one listened to him. It's a double wound. He has hedged me in so I cannot get out. He has made my chain heavy. I think of, he has hedged me in so I cannot get out. There was this series on, I think, Disney Plus, Loki. They're dealing with the TVA, and one of the things that they have as a punishment is they'll put you in this, I don't know, this cube that shrinks and it squishes people. And something like that would be immensely uncomfortable. Who knows? Some time travel, maybe that's what Jeremiah is talking about right here. Even when I cry and shout, he shuts out my prayer. Nothing can get in here. He has blocked my ways with hewn stone. He has made my paths crooked. I had the question there because I'm pretty sure there's verses about making straight or making plain the way of the Lord. So it's interesting that you would have forerunners making plain the way of the Lord, and then in the prophet's perspective here, it's the reverse, where the Lord is throwing rocks, big stones in his path and making his path crooked. So there's an interesting contrast there. In other words, I have to go over and around and through all these different obstacles to try to get to where I'm going. And in his perspective, as someone who's dealing with the struggle, it's because of God. It's a wild thing to think. But to be honest, a lot of us kind of think the same way today, don't we? When different challenges and obstacles come into our experience, we tend to say, God, why did you do this? That's a little bit different than saying, God, why did you allow this to happen? I think that's more of a fair question than immediately blaming God for it. It's a little bit of nuance there. But we do tend to do that a lot of times. And the tendency is to look outwardly and see, why are these other people doing this thing to me, as opposed to what have I done that may have contributed to where we are right now. Verse 10, he has been to me a bear lying in wait, like a lion in ambush. He has turned aside my ways and torn me to pieces. He has made me desolate. He has bent his bow and set me up as a target for the arrow. He has caused the arrows of his quiver to pierce my loins. Sounds painful. I have become the ridicule of my people, their taunting song all the day. And this is echoing exactly what Israel was feeling herself in the previous chapter. He has filled me with bitterness and has made me drink wormwood. Now, I'm not sure exactly what wormwood is, but if it's something that fills you with bitterness, I guess the thought that comes to mind, I was watching this video for class on cults and different religious groups in the States here. There was some interesting stuff. This is not a recent video, but some of these things are still out here today. You had this group, Nexium, some crazy stuff going on there. You had this, what was her name? Unicron, Unicorn something. That was really weird. And you had this guru and this other shaman, and one of these people was actually using this ancient poison and cutting people and putting the poison on their skin inside the open wounds, and it would cause them to like throw up, and you could see the buckets of vomit that they it was gross. It was gross. And it's a bunch of people in the same room all doing this because they want this kind of spiritual experience. If someone's making you consume bitterness and drinking wormwood, it's like, that's the reaction that comes to mind. It's something that's so unpleasant. You can't keep it down. It's just retching you from the inside out. I feel blessed. I haven't thrown up in a long time, but I do remember the last time that I did, it hurt. Anyways, verse 16. He has also broken my teeth with gravel and what? You ever been chewing on like some noodles or some rice especially, and you crunch down on a rock? That's one of the most frustrating things that you can feel when it comes to eating. Never mind the fact that there's a rock in your food. That's a little troubling. But when you're chewing on it, even worse. You feel that grating against your teeth. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. And sometimes you may chip or break your teeth because you broke down on that. That's a little pebble in a bit of rice. What if you stuck a whole bunch of rocks in your mouth and just started chowing down? That's a different level of pain. Now, I don't know if you can tell. Check this out. That tooth is porcelain. Story time. Back when I was in grade school, we were playing this game called Dare Base inside of our gym. CF Richards Junior Academy, Stanton, Virginia. Throwback. And I was on the team that was going this way towards the far end of the gym. Someone was in the base on the other side, and they jumped out right when I was close to getting there. But the thing was, I didn't know that one of my teammates was right behind me. And so when I stopped, he ended up like running almost over me, and his knee hit me in the back of the head, and my head goes slamming down into the ground. And we had this hard tile. I don't know how to describe the gym floor. It wasn't wood. It was basically some kind of rock or some kind of whatever, concrete or whatever. But I just landed, boom, just straight, and it broke my tooth in half. This tooth right here. Ended up getting it replaced later. I was looking at a real jagged edge. If you watched the NBA Finals and you saw what happened to Derek White in one of the last couple games they played, that's what happened to me. It looked that bad and a little bit worse. So I know a little bit of what it's like to have some gravel in your teeth. And it ain't pleasant. He has also broken my teeth with gravel and covered me with ashes. Verse 17, you have moved my soul far from peace. I have forgotten prosperity. And I said, my strength and my hope have perished from the Lord. That line, I have forgotten prosperity, is interesting because this is kind of what Jerusalem, as the city of God, like this city on a hill, the crown jewel, so to speak, of the land of Israel, with the temple and everything that was there. It was kind of known for its prosperity. That was one of the identifying marks of the city. And yet, for everything that it was known for to be taken away, so much to the point where it's like, I've forgotten this. It's not almost, it is that the city is losing its identity. And that's what Jeremiah is saying here. The city has lost, it's forgotten itself. It's unrecognizable, as we talked about in the previous video, because it's so different from what it used to be because of the Babylonians and the captivity that they've enacted. And he gets to a point here at the end of this section of verses where he says, my hope and my strength have perished from the Lord. No more strength, completely weak. No more hope. He's hopeless. He's at a point where not only is he capable of nothing personally because he has no strength, but he's also spiritually in a place so low because he has no hope. And that is a rough place to be. And this is the prophet of God. This is the man of God who is saying this. The one who we could say has the closest relationship to God or with God out of all the people of Israel, because he's the one who's giving them these messages. He's the one who's so weak in his body that he can't do anything for himself. And he's the one who's so weak in hope that he doesn't even trust or know what he can believe anymore. That's a dark place to be. Now, one of the big things I want to get from this is Lamentations is a book that's already showing us how it's okay to struggle and go through hard times because God is still in relationship with us and he can handle that. But I think that there's this additional layer of misconception that can be held when it comes to how we should be when we are the ones in relationship with God who are maybe doing things right. Even for someone like Jeremiah, he's expressing these things. He's expressing this weakness. And it's interesting because by contrast, you have Paul who says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And the difference here is Jeremiah saying, I can do nothing because I don't have hope in God right now. So you have this interesting paradox. But look at who's saying it. It's not someone who doesn't have a relationship with God, and it's not someone who's just on the fringe of a relationship with God. It's someone who's at the peak of a relationship with God in terms of being a prophet and being God's spokesperson to the people. So what does that tell me? Well, if someone who we'd look at and say they're the ones with the strongest relationship with God and they're having this much of an issue with their spiritual connection with God, maybe that struggle and those questions aren't as problematic as we think. Within religion, this might be across the board. You get questioned if you claim to be a part of the religion and you have an issue or you have a question of faith. People want to try to get you to turn around quick and correct your ways because you're going down the wrong path, whatever it might be. It's easy to catch a lot of flack and to be perceived in a negative light because you have spiritual questions, regardless of whatever spirituality or religion you adhere to. But again, when it comes to the biblical context and the God that we see here, he's okay with that. And he's probably a lot more okay with that than humans are, to be honest. But he's okay with that. He's okay with us realizing that we don't have any strength within ourselves to do anything. And he's okay with us realizing or feeling like we can't even hope in him because we have nothing to hold on to. He's okay with that, and he's bigger than that. And I think that's something important that we can learn from and be encouraged by if we understand this and take it to heart. God can work with anybody, regardless of where they are, and it doesn't have to be this, I've got super faith, and I'm so confident in what he's able to do for me. You can be at the bottom of your barrel, you can be at the end of your rope, you can feel like there's nothing even worth hoping in, and he's still willing to show up for you. And I think it's really cool now at this point of the chapter where the prophet is in his admitted point of deepest depths of despair and hopelessness, that he's going to have one thought that still remains that changes the game. And it's powerful. It's powerful. We'll stop there for now. Hey, I hope you enjoy this. Like, subscribe, realize that you're not alone in your struggles, and that wherever you are, it's not a sign that God has left you or abandoned you. He's still there. He's still with you. Just keep looking up, keep trusting, even though it's hard. So I'm gonna leave it right there for now, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.